I've been encouraged by several people, friends and family, who know me well and who know my story, and they have said multiple times, Tai-Danae, you should get up there and tell everyone what God has done for you. And so that's what I'm going to do today. Partly is because, one of the main goals of the Math3ma Symposium is just to get to know one another and to hear about God's faithfulness in your lives. And I am always deeply encouraged, even just yesterday at lunch and in between the breaks, hearing you share even, God's providence in bringing you here on campus and how this event has blessed you in the past and the connections you've made. I am deeply encouraged, and so I'm just going to share some things with you today that I hope maybe can be reciprocal. So I have titled my talk, On the Record, A Mathematician's Story of God's Faithfulness. I'm very grateful for this opportunity to go on the record because I do travel a lot and I speak a lot, usually about my research, but I'm always holding back. I've never really had an opportunity to say the things I really want to say. So actually the real title of my talk is what I really want to say whenever someone asks me, why did you choose a career in math and what do you do exactly? But that was too long, so I had to say the other thing. But this is the real title of my talk. And I'm going to kind of share with you the story of my life. And I'm going to do that in service of answering these two questions. Why did you choose a career in math? And what do you do exactly? But I'm going to go in the reverse order because you're like, who is she and why are we listening to her? So I'm going to tell you who I am first. And I'm also going to tell you what I do as a mathematician. And along the way in the next hour or so, I'm also going to explain what is Math3ma, where did it come from, and how does that relate to me? So that's kind of the goal for the next hour. So what do I do exactly? I guess before I explain that, this is the verse that I have in mind throughout the next hour. Again, it's a little bit strange to just kind of talk about yourself, but what I'm really doing is what the psalmist did in Psalm 66. I just want to say to all of you, come and hear all who fear God, and I will recount what he has done for my soul. That's what this hour is. Okay, so the preface to my story. What do you do, Tai-Danae? You say you're a mathematician. What does that mean? I work at a company called SandboxAQ. The A stands for artificial intelligence. The Q stands for quantum. This is a company, and we're building technologies that address real-world problems using ideas from machine learning and from quantum physics. So we have folks that are working on medical imaging devices that can detect heart attacks quickly just by taking a picture of the magnetic field of your map. We have people that are working on geo-navigation using the Earth's magnetic field. So when you're in enemy territory and you have GPS jamming or spoofing, you can actually use the Earth's magnetic field to navigate. We have people working on that. We have people that are simulating quantum systems on classical computers for drug discovery because you want to know, does this protein fit this molecule in this way? And you can kind of simulate it and see, are there going to be adverse effects, things like that. So in each of these cases, you're using somehow the laws of the quantum world together with ideas from machine learning to solve problems that people care about. I work there full-time. My title is research scientist, although I usually say research mathematician. And I'm going to tell you just saw on the slide, a little bit of the things that I do. But I also work part-time here at the Master's University. My title here is visiting research professor. Visiting means I have a full-time affiliation elsewhere. Research professor means my primary role is research. Later, I will tell you what I really do at TMU. Okay. What does it mean to be a research mathematician? We thought math is just algebra, geometry, and calculus. What else is there to do? So now I'm going to tell you some things that I've been thinking about for several years. So for the past 2 years, I've been working with collaborators at Deloitte, MIT, and SandboxAQ, and we think about ways to tell atoms about data. This is a field called quantum machine learning. This is when you do machine learning on quantum computers. A quantum computer, I am not going to talk about this too long because it's a whole thing, but on computers, computers think in bits, zeros and ones, like the matrix, zeros and ones. Okay, zeros and ones are processed on little pieces of silicon called transistors. And either current flows or not flows, and that's what's in your computer chip. On a quantum computer, this is a new kind of hardware that companies are building. You process information on individual atoms. Think of a silicon atom. They don't use silicon, they use other elements on the periodic chart. You process information on individual quantum particles, and there's fancy ways to do this, and it turns out physics at the quantum level is very different than physics at the macroscopic level. So in principle, you can do things on quantum computers that maybe you can't do on classical. So people are saying, maybe we can try to do machine learning. Like maybe we can classify images on quantum computers. Oh, there's a cat or a jaguar or something, or versus a picture of a dog or whatever we use machine learning for. But if you're going to try this, you have to know, how do I encode information in the real world onto an atom? What does that even mean? So it turns out people know what that means, and there's lots of answers. There's actually lots of ways to do this, but the field is so new, no one really knows a principled way to do that. Just kind of do whatever works or whatever they have in the lab. But there's not really a rigorous, methodical way to think about this. So it turns out that it's also a very mathematical question. And some of my collaborators and I are trying to bring in the rigor that mathematicians are trained on and say, here's a toolbox that can help you organize your thoughts and maybe think about more principled ways to encode information in the real world on your quantum bits. So that's one project I've been working on with some really great collaborators. Another thing I've been trying to do for a long time is to discover new mathematics through language. And this is a project I started during my PhD years a long time ago. People are working on this, folks from the City University of New York, ETH, which is a university in Switzerland, the Athena Research Center, which is a research center in Greece, and Caltech. So my collaborators are from these institutions. Okay, what do you mean discover new math? Okay. Language, which by the way, if you say I'm not a linguist, why should I care? Because you use ChatGPT, I'm sure. So, okay, maybe you don't. Okay, so you know about it though. You're trying to resist, but you know about it. So language is on a lot of people's minds these days, and language is very mathematical. Okay, think about this. In math, you can multiply two numbers, 2 times 3, and you get a new number, 6. In language, you can multiply words, concatenate them, and get new expressions. Blue ocean, blue ocean. Hot dog, hot dog. I am hungry, I am hungry. So language is algebraic. Language has algebraic structure. But language is also statistical. As you know, this is what ChatGPT is doing. It's producing strings of words based on the likelihood that the next word I say is going to be such and such. So there's a certain probability that if I say blue, the next word is ocean. And that probability is different than blue avocado, which is a lower probability. Okay, so the question is, language is algebraic and language is statistical. Those are two math things, so when you put them together, what is that? What mathematical structure is in language? I don't know. That's not a thing that you're going to study in school. You can't take a class on that because we don't know the answer. So there's new math, okay? It's waiting to be discovered. It's been taking a very long time. Now, it turns out there's a modern branch of mathematics called category theory. And category theory seems to provide a very good foundation for mathematicians to start to think about answers to that question. So I started this when I was in graduate school, and there's a lot of people that have been interested in it. Another thing I'm interested in, I've been working on for a while, is understanding the shape of information. Okay, one measure of information is something called entropy. Usually when I say entropy, you might think of like thermodynamics. It turns out there's many measures of many kinds of entropy. Thermodynamic entropy is one kind. There's other kinds of entropy that people think about. They're kind of all related. But entropy essentially is like a measure of information. It could be information in a message. How much information is in a message if I say, oh, it's sunny in Southern California? Are you surprised at that? No? You're like, yeah, it's always beautiful here. Well, I guess it's not sunny right now. Okay. Or, if I say, well, it was blizzarding in Los Angeles, that's like, whoa, that's a lot of information. That's surprising. So there's a way you can measure that. It's called Shannon entropy. Okay, anyway, you can also think about the amount of information and a correlation between two things in space. So some people study correlations between quantum particles. It's called entanglement, if you've heard of that word before. Another kind of correlation you may be interested in is information between the interior and exterior of a black hole. This is also something physicists are studying. And it turns out that in some situations with black holes and with quantum particles, it seems that entropy is closely related to the shape of the region of space that you're studying. Now, when you look at the behavior that entropy plays in relating to the shape of space, and you're kind of studying it, you say, wow, this pattern looks a lot like this other toolbox that mathematicians have been using for decades for something completely unrelated. So the more you study it, the more you're like, wow, the mathematicians are discovering the things that the physicists are doing, but the physicists don't really know what the mathematicians are doing, and I love mysteries like that, because there are no coincidences, are there? So I've been very intrigued by this for quite some time, maybe 4 years or so. I haven't actually made a lot of progress recently, even though it's the thing I'm most interested in. But I have a question mark. Maybe I've actually been interested in this for 15 years, because it's closely related to some motivations I had for getting into this field in the first place back when I was in college, and I'm going to tell you about that later. So when I say I'm a research mathematician at a tech company, this is what I mean. I'm interested in mathematical ideas and how they relate to the world around us, in particular connections from the quantum world and abstract pure math. Okay, the point I want to make now, I can kind of tell you more about my background, but I actually think this is a delightful point, okay? As you can see, math is a lot more than arithmetic. And the more I think about mathematics, I actually thought about this, these verses from Psalm 104. It reminds me of studying the ocean depths, actually. So I'm going to make this connection. I'm going to read this verse and then make the connection. How numerous are your works, O Yahweh? In wisdom you have made them all. The earth is full of your possessions. This is the sea, great and broad, and there the creeping things are without number, creatures both small and great. Just like the sea is great and broad, the world of mathematics is also great and broad. It's vast, it's ever expanding, it's flourishing just like the ocean, and just like the bottom of the ocean floor has all of these weird creatures that look funny and have funny names, and there's tons of them, both small and great. Same in the world of mathematics. The thing is, just like you don't know those little fish are at the bottom, right? You have to go there. You have to prepare yourself to go there. Same thing, there's this invisible world of mathematics, and the only way you can get to know these funny creatures is if you take time to go there and explore and see them. And I want to tell you some of their names, all right? So there's this book that came out in 2008. It's called The Princeton Companion to Mathematics. This is a compilation of a bunch of, it's kind of like an encyclopedia, so a bunch of mathematicians got together and wrote a lot of articles, and the editors have said, we live in an era where so much mathematics is being published that no one individual can understand more than a tiny fraction of it. I'm trying to expand your brains here. I'm trying to tell you math is maybe not what you think it is. This statement is so true. I go to math conferences and I'm like, I have no idea what that person just said, because I only can study a tiny slice of the mathematical landscape. I need multiple lives to understand everything. I can't do that. So even it's hard to talk to other mathematicians because I'm like, I think I know what you said, but I'm not sure. Okay, so I just want to emphasize this point. This book is over 1,000 pages long. If you look at the table of contents, it covers 99 mathematical topics with names like Hilbert space, Galois groups, and Calabi-Yau manifolds, and 96 others. Okay, these are just like 99 that they handpicked. There's new things being discovered all the time. Part of my research is putting more things on the list. The book also covers 35 theorems and problems with names like the ABC conjecture, Fermat's last theorem, and the four-color theorem. And the book also covers 96 influential mathematicians from the 5th century BC to the middle of the 20th century, including Euclid, Gauss, and Gödel. Now, there are not only 96 mathematicians in history, they just picked 96 famous ones, but of course, new mathematicians are coming on the scene all the time because people go to school. Folks like Elizabeth, little Elizabeth is maybe going to be a budding mathematician one day. She's 7 years old. So mathematicians are being born all the time. So do you see the point that I'm trying to make? When I say I'm a mathematician, I do not mean I just multiply big numbers all day. In fact, I cannot do that. I'm quite not good at arithmetic, actually. People can tell you that. So I just want to say, God's glory is on display across all of his beautiful creation, from the unseen ocean depths even to the invisible world of mathematics. I hope you see that. And yet, I have to tell you, this was my least favorite subject ever. I did not like math growing up at all. So you may wonder then, why did you choose a career in it? So this is the question now I want to answer. Okay, so I just gave you the background. I answered the first question, what do you do? Hopefully you have a better idea of what do I do. And now I'm going to tell you my story. Why in the world would I choose this? So I'm going to break up the story into 3 chapters. I didn't know what to call the first chapter, so I'm just going to tell you this is the short version, and it's going to be long. So you can imagine the real version. I can talk all day about this. I'm going to try not to. So I'm going to tell you, first, let me set the scene. I want to tell you how much I did not like math. I would rather have all my teeth pulled than do math for a living. Right? Right, Dr. Felix? Dr. Felix is a dentist. He just pulls them all out once. It's one and done. That's better than a lifetime of math. That sounds horrendous. Why did I used to think that? I just thought growing up, math is like number crunching, right? You get rewarded for doing your times tables quickly. How atrocious. Who would want to do this for life? Symbol manipulation. Then you get to algebra and you just have these letters, and sometimes there's these funny hieroglyphic symbols, and you just kind of move them around. And then sometimes the teacher will say, good job. It's like, what did I do? I don't know. She said good job, so I'll just do it again somehow. I don't know why you get rewarded for that. And then it's just this competitiveness, you know. The students that do it the fastest somehow get A's, and then they kind of like, you know, they kind of get a little bit, I did this better than you, and then just makes the rest of us feel bad. So math is very snobby. I thought it's very elitist. You have to be some kind of genius to do this mysterious symbol manipulation. And I was just totally lost. It felt completely dry and lifeless to me and absolutely boring. Can you tell? I did not have good experiences with math. I mean, in middle school and high school and even into college a little bit. So I didn't really understand anything about what mathematics was. Everything I just described for you was foreign to me as a student in high school and even entering college. Okay. Well, speaking of college, I now want to tell you when things started to change. A lot changed in the year 2010. So I went to community college for a year between 2007 and 2008. I had just finished high school. I'll tell you why I went to community college a little bit later on, but I ended up, I lived in Virginia at the time, and then I moved to New York, where I went to the City College of New York, for 6 years. It took me 6 years to finish college. I'm going to explain why. Okay? A lot happened in the year 2010. Let me just tell you up front how I went from having my teeth pulled as a preference to why I started to like math. And the bottom line is I had a very good teacher in a Calculus 3 class. I think teachers make a world of difference, okay? So this professor taught math in a way that was very different than how I had heard it before. He described it conceptually as full of ideas that anyone could grasp, regardless of your academic pedigree, regardless of your intellectual capabilities. So he really brought the mathematics down to a simple level that a normal person like me could understand. And he also described the mathematics in a way that connected to the world around us. So it wasn't just these esoteric symbols that were disconnected from creation, but he made the connection. So I started to see, oh, math actually is like a language that can help us understand the things that we're observing with our eyes in the real world. I had never heard that before. And he would also say things like, I would rather you end my class with a C and have a deep understanding of the ideas than to get an A just through memorization. And I found that so confusing. I'm like, wait, there's things to understand? I thought math was memorization. What do you mean understand? Understand what? Understand what? So all of these things are happening at the same time. Now, I also had a biblical worldview. So I was raised in a Christian home, and I submitted my life to Christ at a young age, around 11 or 12. So I am a Christian by the time that I'm in college. And I'm filtering everything my professor is saying through the lens of Scripture. And then I started to see, oh, wait a second. Math is a language that God intentionally gave us so that we can see his glory on display in creation at an even deeper level. This is remarkable. This happened very quickly, okay? So I went from, the other slide, I want to keep my teeth now so that I can learn this subject pain-free and then tell people about it. This is great. This is great. Now, I could just move on, but actually, how I got into the Calc 3 class, I actually want to tell you about that because it's pretty providential and it's pretty cool, okay? How did I even get in Calculus 3? You should be asking that. Tai-Danae, you said you hate math, so that means you took Calc 1 and passed, and you took Calc 2 and passed, and somehow you made it. What are you doing, right? So I have to explain that, okay. So I actually played on the women's basketball team my first 2 years at City College, right? So I told you I'm in 2010, but what happened 2 years prior? So that's why I went to community college. I played basketball throughout high school. I thought I was going to have a career in athletics. I took a year off after high school just to do strength and conditioning and improve my shot, And so I really wanted to play basketball, and so I was like, I'm really committed to this. I'm going to train for a year straight but stay in school a little bit so I don't forget stuff. And then I played basketball at CCNY. It's Division III. Okay, for reasons related to being on the basketball team, I ended up registering for classes late in the spring of 2010. So I'm talking January 2010. That's when the spring semester starts. For reasons related to being on the women's basketball team. You're like, what reasons? Ask me later. That's like 10 more minutes. God's providence, I'm telling you, amazing. Ask me later, okay? I'm going to admit it, though. I was late registering for this class. So there were several Calculus 3 sections. They were all filled except for one section with one seat. So I registered for that seat because classes start like in 3 days. Okay, so that's the only seat left, so now I'm in this class. This is the spring of 2010. I'm still playing on the women's basketball team, so we have practice early in the morning, we have travel. I lived in Long Island at the time, and City College is in Harlem. I don't know, that's like a 2-hour commute, one way, 2 times a day. So, and also I'm not good at math anyway, so I don't know what happened in this class. I told you I had a good teacher, but it wasn't that semester. Oh, so you mean you took it twice? Yeah. So I'm getting there. Okay. So here's what happened, right? This is all terrible. So I register late. I'm in this class. I don't understand anything that's going on. I'm commuting from Long Island to Harlem. I'm taking the subway and the Long Island Railroad. It's just a mess. And then I missed the final exam. Yeah, you know why I missed the final exam? Because my dad, who is here somewhere, in the back of the room, my dad, his job sent him to a conference in Texas. And I'm like, oh, I want to go. That sounds fun. We didn't do a lot of traveling, and I've never been to Texas. So I went to Texas. I don't know what happened at this conference. It was not for kids, so I don't know. But it was fun to not be in school. So I missed the final exam. But the school had a policy. If you miss the final in the spring semester, this is like May, it's okay, you can retake it in the fall. You just have like a little hold on your transcript, and then you can come back and take it in the fall. So I said, okay, I'm going to go to Texas, and then I retook the final in the fall. But it just so happened that professor was teaching Calculus 3 in the summer. So he said, well, look, why don't you just sit in the class again? I mean, I'm teaching it, so you can just sit in the back, and that way you can hear the things again, and so you won't forget it. So I sat in class again. This is when things changed. You know why? Because I didn't have to take notes, and I didn't have to study for exams, and I didn't have to study for quizzes or do the homework. So I could just sit and listen. And I didn't have the pressure of writing notes and not understanding what he's saying, and da-da-da. So I just listened. And when I listened, I understood things now. And that's when my eyes started to open. Okay, so I sat in class that summer. I came back in the fall, and I quit the women's basketball team. Cold turkey. I've never looked back. Maybe I've touched a basketball once since then. I quit the basketball team, and I said, this is the thing I want to study in life. This is what I want to do now. Why? Because it's putting God's glory on display. I just want to know what that is. You know what it's like? It's like what Mike Riccardi said yesterday. Remember, he said he and Jana are driving on the Pacific Coast Highway, and you just look out the window, and you see the ocean, and you see the beauty, and you're just like, wow. And then you drive again, wow. And then you drive again, wow. So that's what I wanted to do in life. So I quit the basketball team, and I became a physics major. Oh, you thought I was going to say math. No, I became a physics major because the more I learned from this professor, the more I learned about the mysteries of the universe at the quantum level, at the gravity level. And I said, I want to know what God has put in place in creation on day one. He is amazing, and he has allowed us to be able to probe the depths of what he's done. I want to study this stuff. So I thought I should be a physics major because that's how if you want to understand the fundamentals of the universe, you study physics. So that's what I did. So how did I get to math? All right, I got to tell you about that too. I told you this is long, but I'm giving you the short version, believe it or not. I want to give you now a peek into a personal slice of everything that's going on in my head at this time, okay? So I went to Texas, right? And at this conference, they were handing out everyone a little red notebook. Not as nice as the notebooks you all have. Okay. And I have the notebook here. This is 15 years old. Every now and then I read through it, especially when I get a little discouraged, because I have little reminders in here, basically of how great our God is as I'm studying his creation. I want to show you some pages of things that I've written as I'm having this transformation, okay? What are some things I'm learning at this time? I learned about molecular interactions. So the same semester I took Calculus 3, I was also in a Biology 101 class. And just before I left Texas, we had a final exam in biology, and there was this question on the exam. And it has to do with DNA transcription. So you have DNA, it's a double helix. That means you unzip the helix so that you can make RNA from your DNA. Actually, we saw a little snippet from Barry's video yesterday. So the question has to do with, okay, you have this little molecule, and it's traveling along your DNA helix, and at some point it stops so that it unzips it so that transcription can start. And the question is basically like, how does the little protein molecule know when to start? How does it know when to start along the zip? So it has to do with a little particular sequence of nucleotides, the rungs in the ladder of the DNA. Anyway, so this question is asking basically how like at a molecular level, how does your molecule, your protein know when to start this unzipping process so that transcription can begin? So it's asking about the number of hydrogen bonds between the nucleotides in this particular sequence, which is basically like a green light. Like we're driving, how do we know when to go when it turns green? So you gotta wait for the stoplight. So there's like a stoplight on this DNA strand. I had never put myself in the shoe of a molecule before. I'm like, wait a second, yeah, if I'm just going along this DNA, how do I know when to start? So I'm gonna count the number of hydrogen bonds here. And so what does that mean? It means I'm feeling like the electron sharing forces that are going on, these intermolecular forces. And so I had never thought about that. I understand that Christ upholds all things by the word of his power. He's the one that's doing this. But he's given physicists and scientists brains to understand these things and to put words on them. So I'm baffled that there's this whole invisible world at the atomic level I had never thought of before. Now, I got that question wrong, but it really got me thinking. So I wrote that down in my notebook. Another thing I find in this notebook, I write this in October 2010. I'm learning about gravity and quantum physics at this time. So I say, why don't quantum mechanics and general relativity coincide? Okay, so gravity, we usually think of gravity as a force, like a magnet has a force. So this turns out not to be true. So one thing that Einstein is known for is something called general relativity, which says that gravity is not a force like a magnet attraction, but it's a result of how this fabric of space-time is curved. So the usual analogy is, imagine you have a mattress and you put a bowling ball on it. It's going to sink down a little bit, right? So if you put something on the edge, like a little marble, it's going to be drawn to your bowling ball. So that's not a force. It's just the curvature of the mattress is causing the little marble to be attracted to the bowling ball. And so there's a lot of geometry that goes on that physicists and mathematicians study. The shape of the fabric of space-time, essentially. It's like the universe. And so gravity is really a manifestation of some geometric properties. And there's also really interesting things about quantum physics, but the math that describes these two polar opposites aren't really compatible. So people are for decades have been trying to reconcile the two. I write about string theory. How close are string theorists in understanding this? That's just one attempt that physicists are making to understand these two things together. So I'm learning about all of this. At the same time, I'm filtering all of this through Scripture. So I see on the right, I've written Romans 1 down. I'm like, wow, this stuff is amazing. The invisible things of him from the creation of the world are clearly seen. At the same time as I'm doing all of this geeking out, I'm reading MacArthur, Spurgeon, and Calvin. So what do I say? What did MacArthur say? In the beginning time, God force created action, the heavens and the earth. So I'm reading his book, The Battle for Beginning. I'm listening to all of his sermons. I'm reading Calvin on Psalm 19. I'm reading sermons from Charles Spurgeon. So all of these things are swirling in my head at the same time. And then I start to get really frustrated. In May of 2011, why am I frustrated? I cannot articulate my thoughts clearly. I have a flood of thoughts and ideas, but I don't know how to express them. I don't know how to speak the language in which the answers are written. So I'm trying to read these books, and I'm trying to ask my professors questions, and they're using these words I have never heard before and that I cannot pronounce. Right? So I'm frustrated, and I say, I don't know hardly enough math. I don't even think that's good grammar, but I don't know enough math to even write down my complaints of how much I don't know. So it's like a baby, right? You have a little baby, and they're crying. It's like, what do you want? Are you hungry? Do you need a diaper change? But they can't tell you. They just, and that's how I felt. I don't even know how to tell you how frustrated I am. So what is the solution to this? This is exactly why I quit basketball, because I need to understand. I have to learn. So I declared physics major, finally 2 years into college. And the more physics I studied, the more I'm like, wait a second. The language the physicists use to probe the depths of creation is mathematics. I need to study mathematics. So then I finally declared math major in 2012 when I should have graduated, but I stayed on 2 more years to study math, and then I finished in 2014. This is why it took me 6 years to finish college. Now, at this point, I realized when I finished my double major, I know enough to know I barely know anything. I barely know anything. So how can I learn more? I can't stop now. I know nothing. How can I learn more? And then, again, in God's providence, someone said, why don't you get a PhD? I'm like, a what? I don't know what that is. I've never heard, what is that? People do that? What is that? So someone encouraged me. I'm like, oh, that sounds good. Yeah, they pay you to learn more. If you get a scholarship, they pay you to learn more. So then I wanted to go to graduate school. So why did I choose a career in math then? Why did I choose to study this thing that is so hard for me? I actually think something Abner said in last year's Math3ma Symposium in his message, which is on YouTube, really resonated with me. So I'm paraphrasing something that Abner Chow said. We'll hear from him later today. When approached rightly from Scripture, the sciences lift our hearts in worship to God, and we cannot help but say, "How great thou art." And I think that's what I was experiencing all those years ago. And it's like, just like Mike was saying, you just keep driving on this journey and you just say, "Wow, look at this, roll your window down, look at this." And that's all I wanted to do. I just want to see more of these things and say, "Wow, people, look at this." So this is why I chose a career in math. Well, my motivation at this time is very high, but it's not like all of a sudden I became a genius. It's not like all of a sudden math got easier for me. It's still difficult. I just am excited about it. I mean, I hate it less, now. I hate it less, yeah. So there's many Bible verses that stood out to me during this time. Isaiah 66, verse 2, really is close to my heart. I'm just going to tell you, I was extremely intimidated because I'm looking at these great scientists, these great mathematicians. Even my classmates are, super smart. And I'm like, but I'm just me. I just found out about math like yesterday. And you guys are doing math Olympiads. And do you know there's a math Olympiad? So nerdy, right? So people do this, and I'm just like, I think it's amazing because Jesus is awesome, but I'm not that great at it. So I remember, so things like Isaiah 66, verse 2 means so much to me. So this is God speaking. "For my hand made all these things. Thus all these things came into being, declares Yahweh. But to this one I will look, to him who is humble and contrite in spirit and who trembles at my word." So I do not think God is up there like, "Wow, Dr. So-and-so is so smart." No, Yahweh made these things, right? So I had to remember this. Oh yeah, God is not impressed by their accolades. He's not impressed, if I get an A on all of my exams. Oh wow, I like her better now. No. Who is the one that God pays attention to? The one who is humble and contrite in spirit and who trembles at my word, at his word. So this is something, it took me a very long time to learn this lesson, and I'm still trying to learn it. And during my years in graduate school is when I trying to learn to be less enamored by the world and more enamored by Christ. So during my PhD years, I got my PhD at the City University of New York, the Graduate Center. This is located on 34th Street and 5th Avenue in Manhattan. That's literally across the street from the Empire State Building. So I take the subway to class all the time. That took me 6 years to finish. That's more reasonable. That's like, I think average is 5 in the US. So I don't have to explain this too much. But I do want to tell you, math was my joy and my weakness, as you know. I took all of my insecurities with me to grad school. So I'm being so transparent right now, you guys. What's on paper versus what my brain sees. So look, prove that if X is a simply connected, locally path-connected point in space, meaning obviously it has a distinguished base point, and P going from E to B is a covering projection of points. Do you understand? These are words that mathematicians have invented. This has meaning. But when I started grad school, I'm like, prove, has, and, of, then, here, the, of, from, to. This is all I understand. Listen, I made this 10 years ago as a PhD student, and I put this on the internet. To this day, why would I do that? Why would I think it's okay to let people know that I don't know what's going on? I don't know why I did that, and I'm showing it to you also. But I think I just want you to know that this was a very hard time for me. So my point is, my motivation is high. You understand my motivation, but it's not like all of a sudden I'm this genius person. So I had serious concerns. You have to pass qualifying exams. I don't know if you know what this is. I'm going to explain. In a PhD, at least at our program, you take some classes for a year or two, and then you have qualifying exams. This is a year-long comprehensive exam. And you have to take 3 of them in 3 different topics. And if you do not pass all 3 of the exams, you're kicked out of the program. You can't even start to do research. So there's a lot of weight here. I'm like, how in the world am I going to pass this? And it's a 3-hour-long exam. You just sit there in a room for 3 hours and do stuff. How am I going to do this? It doesn't seem possible. So what's the solution? Okay. I learn best by writing things down. Writing things down forces me to think deeply about every word that's on the page, okay? So I'm going to class, the professor's doing stuff on the board, I'm like writing. They're writing, I'm writing. They're writing, I'm just writing what they're writing. I cannot comprehend complex ideas in real time. So I'm writing stuff down, I have no idea what they say. I don't know. I'm just writing it down because I need a record of something. Then I would go home and I would rewrite the notes, but I wouldn't move on from one sentence to the next until I understood every word in the previous sentence. Which means I have to stop, like at every word, and then go back to the book and understand that. But then I wouldn't understand half those words, and then I have to go look online or whatever. This would take hours. This would take me hours, and I did this for all of the classes. This is brutal. This is like blood, sweat, and tears. And I'm discouraged. I'm like, I don't think this is normal. I don't think other people are doing this. But if I don't do this, I'm not going to pass. Then what would happen? I'd spend all this time trying to understand what's going on. And then I'd realize, wait a second. This was way easier than the professor let on. Wait a second, this is so simple. It's like obvious. Why would you spend so much time obfuscating the idea? It's so easy. Why didn't you just say it the first time this way? So then I'd rewrite things a 3rd time the way they should have explained it the first time. I'm like, this is beautiful. You just hid this extraordinary idea behind a dense fog of technicalities and jargon and a whole bunch of details that were unnecessary. This is ridiculous. So then I started collecting all of these notes, okay? So I have so many notes of me trying to understand these ideas. Notebooks, scattered paper. I really love working on the floor, so I have a desk at home and I don't use it because I need everything spread out. It looks messy, but it's so organized. Every pile has a meaning. Anyway, so I would collect all of these notes all the time. Like, look, and I'm trying to encourage myself. Tai-Danae, the mistake I made was good. So I'm trying to be like, it's okay, you're learning. So then I'd collect these notes, expositions of the math written in ways I wish it had been described to me the first time. Also, by the way, I'm trying to pass my qualifying exams, right? So I got to keep it simple for myself so that I remember. And then I started collecting these piles of essays. And I thought, well, you know, other people are also studying for this. So maybe, I don't know, maybe I should share them. What should I do with all of these notes? So I'm just going to tell you, at this time, as you can see, I was frustrated. I'm frustrated that, well, I guess I could say I'm frustrated at the way that academies is kind of accepted. You know, it's almost a little bit like hazing. Unless you can understand this fancy thing, it's not for you. So that made me frustrated. Filtering that through a biblical lens, what was happening, I felt that, wait a second, why would you, who is you? I don't know, just like generally, why would one make it difficult for others to be equipped to see what God has done? In other words, remember, I went to grad school because I'm like, I just want to travel along the landscape of math and say, wow, God, how great you are. That's my goal. But I'm being prevented from doing that because of the way that math is presented. It's just kind of not user-friendly. Mathematicians are just very terse and brief, and the fewer they say, the better, because you have to work hard to figure it out. So that just made me very frustrated. In general, in science communication, I just felt scientists, we're not known for being great communicators, and that was frustrating for me. God's put his glory on display for himself, not so that we can pat ourselves on the back and say how great we are. So I felt that there's something going on there that was quite bothering me. So what I did, I channeled that frustration into a blog. So all of those articles and all of my blood, sweat, and tears, I started to put them online, thinking maybe there are other students that are also studying for the same exams as me across the country. And maybe my little writings might be helpful for them too. I don't know. To be honest, I was very nervous when I did this. Because what I'm essentially doing by breaking complex ideas down in simple ways, I'm admitting to the world, I don't know this. I can't speak in fancy language like you do. I can only speak in simple language. I know that's not really how it's done in academia, but this is what I have to do to pass my exams. Maybe it's helpful. Maybe you're going to kick me out. I don't know, but maybe it's helpful for people. So I put this up there. My first blog post was on February 1st, 2015, about 10 years ago, and you saw the little animation there. It was called a math blog. Say what? That's what I named it, because I was like, I know, it's so weird and nerdy, but I think this is gonna go okay. So anyways, I figured, well, only my parents are gonna read this, but they won't understand it either. So I don't know who this is for. It's just for me. There it is. Okay, so that was 10 years ago, and I just gotta tell you, people, I don't want to do like a bragamony, right? But I just want to tell you that God has blessed this nerdy thing in amazing ways. So this is a recent snapshot of the people who have accessed these articles in the past year and a half. So all of the blue countries are countries over the world, right? If it's blue, they've accessed it. This is only the past year and a half. Why? Because Google Analytics changed their software, and I lost all my data from the past 10 years. And I know, and I can't get it back. So this is just numbers from the past year and a half, which I haven't blogged. I haven't blogged regularly in about 4 or 5 years. So a lot of the traffic, which you see right now, is from old stuff. So people are still accessing it. I just want to show you this because I've received so many emails and notes from people reaching out, saying how the writings have helped them. The reason I'm telling you this is to say I see that as God's kindness, because I was a nervous wreck doing all of this. But I'm thinking, well, God gave me the brain. God gave me all of these experiences. He's the one that has ordained my life in this way. I have to do what I have to do, and I belong to him, so I'm just going to trust in him. And if it doesn't go well, it doesn't go well. But every email that I've ever gotten, every note, even when I go to conferences, people say, I've never met before. Oh, your articles have helped me so much. They helped me pass my qualifying exams. I'm like, wow, our God is so kind. So I'm just showing you this to just emphasize his faithfulness. One thing, what the world doesn't know, really, everyone who's accessing these articles, is that each article really has a story of God's faithfulness behind it. I just got to quickly tell you about one of these stories, okay? A flashcard story. So, again, I'm in graduate school. I'm trying to study for these qualifying exams. It's really hard. I have all of these notes, whatever. And at some point, I'm like, it would be really helpful if I make flashcards, which is embarrassing for me because don't you use them in kindergarten? I'm a PhD student. Why am I doing flashcards? But I had to. I'm trying to pass this. So at the Graduate Center, we have this common area. It's called the shoebox. This is like a table. There's some coffee. So this is where all the students hang out. So this is like a week before our qualifying exam in a branch of math called abstract algebra. This studies symmetries, like a sunflower has symmetry, whatever. So there's a nice branch of math. Anyway, so I have my flashcards out on the table, and I'm trying to study. And then, the top student walks by, okay, brilliant. He understands in real time. He asks the best questions in class. He, solves things immediately, just like the star student, right? He walks by. Remember, there's all the grad students are here. I'm having imposter syndrome and all this stuff. He walks by, and he sees my flashcards. He's like, oh, that's not right. He just looks. I'm like, well, what does that symbol mean again? Oh, what? Huh? So he's like, oh, that's not right. And then he's just like, it's da-da-da-da. He just points out my error. And he's like, obviously, the answer is da-da-da-da. And I'm still trying to process, I'm in a room full of people, in a PhD program with my flashcards out, and that's hard. And then he just said in front of everybody, the thing I have is wrong. I don't even know, I can't process like what the right answer is, even though he just said it. First of all, that's gonna take me like another hour to understand. I'm like trying not to cry, okay? Anyway, I go home and cry, and and then I'm trying to remember what he said the right answer was. And then this takes me like late into the night. I'm trying to figure out this thing so I can crack this stupid flashcard. Okay, so I do that, and I think I should quit probably. This isn't for me. Anyway, so then the next week I go to the qualifying exam, and I turn the page, and the first question is exactly that thing. And I got it right. And I passed the exam. I passed all 3 of my quals. So one of the articles on the Math3ma website is explaining this thing, by the way. Okay, so that's what I mean. All of my people don't know that. They just go online and like, oh yeah, thank you, that helped me. But each of these articles are me crying out to the Lord, Jesus, please help me understand your mathematics so that I can do well for you, so that I can understand your handiwork in creation. I mean, my homeworks are bathed in prayer. I pray before going to office hours. Please give my professor the right words to say so that I can understand what they're saying, so that I can grasp this information. All of this is bathed in prayer. And when I saw that question appear on my qualifying exam, it's like you want to break down and cry. Oh, the Lord is so intimately involved in my life. How precious is that? So I take a photo of my flashcards. Here are the stupid flashcards. And it's the one on the top left, okay? So it's computing the Galois group of some polynomial over a finite field, if you know what that means. But you understand, normal people can't understand this, right? You need to organize it in some way, so I use flashcards. So this is very hard for me. Anyway, so I wrote a blog post about this. So what's the Bible verse that really comes to mind here? I mean, you all know 2 Corinthians 12, so I'm just going to read it out loud as I conclude this chapter. And he has said to me, my grace is sufficient for you, for power is perfected in weakness. Most gladly, therefore, I will rather boast about my weaknesses, so that the power of Christ may dwell in me. Therefore, I delight in weaknesses, in insults, in distresses, in persecutions, and difficulties in behalf of Christ. For when I am weak, then I am strong. He is strong. So, wow, when I saw that, I delight in weaknesses. Indeed, Math3ma is my delight. When I look at that blog, that is my repository of God's kindness and faithfulness bringing me through. And what was very difficult for me at the time is now something I love to tell people about. I love to tell them about, even though at the moment it was very difficult. So now I just want to tell you so I finished my PhD in 2020. My defense was on Zoom because that was during the COVID era, so that was very interesting. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about what's happened since then. So I'm just going to fill in the timeline. So as I mentioned, I went to the City College of New York for undergrad. I then did my PhD. That took 6 years. I started Math3ma, the blog, in 2015. In 2017, I'm still in graduate school. I was able to make some videos online with PBS Digital Studios. So there's a math channel. You can find the videos on YouTube where we're describing complex math ideas for math enthusiasts. That was really fun. I got to stand in front of a green screen and explain ideas and work with animators. These are like 10-minute clips. You can still find them on YouTube. When I was in graduate school, I was also able to co-author a textbook published by MIT Press with my advisor on topology, which is like a squishy version of geometry. It's a really, really cool branch of mathematics. I defended my thesis in 2020. I made a little trailer video about it, explaining it in cool ways. It has to do with language, kind of the ideas I was telling you earlier. When I graduated, then I did a 1-year postdoc at Alphabet, which is the parent company of Google. That, too, is a whole different story of God's providence. How did I get that job? Ask me later over lunch. I am trying to omit stuff, but more of God's providence. And the reason I'm mentioning all of these PBS, the topology book, my job at Alphabet, all happened through Math3ma. So I get things happen because, oh, you do this Math3ma blog, therefore can you also do this other thing? Again, I'm just describing this because what was such a weakness for me, God has used to open many doors in ways I would never have anticipated. A math blog. Is there anything more nerdy? Ridiculous. And yet he's chosen to bless it in such amazing ways. I'm very grateful for him. That now leads us from 2021 when I started working at, Sandbox started inside of Alphabet and then we spun out, so we're our own independent company now in 2021. And 2021 is also when I joined TMU. So remember I told you I was going to tell you more about what I do at TMU. So I'm going to do that now. One thing is organize the Math3ma Symposium, which you all know because you're all here. I really appreciate that. What you may not know is that the Math3ma Symposium is part of a larger vision of something called the Math3ma Institute, which you've seen the logo. I mean, there it is, right? But you're like, what is that? So I'm going to tell you now. So this is a vision, something that we'd like to work towards. The mission of the Math3ma Institute, we're workshopping this, okay? So to establish a network of Christian professionals in the sciences, to foster impactful scientific research, and engage in science communication, doing all those things while grounded in a biblical worldview. So the idea is, you're discovering God's creation. This is research. You're working with it, and you're sharing those ideas with the world, whether other brothers and sisters in Christ, like here, or other folks around the world in any capacity, and then you do this over and over again. So what are some ways we're trying to do this? Well, some things we're doing now, I mentioned the symposium. Yesterday, we talked about Math3ma Connect, so if you weren't here yesterday, we are thinking of starting something like meeting more than once a year. This is a big commitment, right? You have to take time off of work. But wouldn't it be nice to not have to wait a year to see each other? So maybe something like quarterly Zoom meetings where we can maybe replicate the kind of informal discussion on AI that we had yesterday or other topics that people are interested in. Someone suggested earlier, what if we have local gatherings, like just gather, on campus at TMU or at a coffee shop or something, where we can stay connected more than once a year, maybe have something like a Slack channel or Discord so that our community can grow and be connected with one another. So that's looking at the networking aspect. What about the science communication? Well, we have the Math3ma Journal. I believe there's an article in the program about that, where we want to provide an avenue for those who do research to explain their work in accessible, understandable, expository ways so that others can understand, not just peers, like not just if you're like one of the other 5 experts in your area, right? So we have the Math3ma Journal, which is a continuous publication model online. In the future, some things we'd like to do to think about fostering research. It might be really nice if one day we could offer fellowships to PhD students, other graduate students, maybe undergraduates, or postdoctoral scholars, or researchers that are in the field. So you can apply for the NSF, but what if there was a nice way to apply for funding through the Math3ma Institute, and maybe there's a way to have connections in the community, maybe by, for example, having mentorship opportunities, or if there's other younger students that are maybe thinking, hey, I'm a high schooler, how can I get involved? Is there an internship that I have? Are there discipleship opportunities? So these are some sort of large buckets that we're thinking, how can we fill these things? Connecting other believers who God has also called in the STEM fields. We're kind of scattered everywhere. So the symposium is just one slice of a much larger vision that we would like to pursue with your prayers and God's timing. We'll see what happens. My role at TMU, the reason why I'm here, is to oversee this vision. Now, I want to start to wrap up, and I just want to share you another personal slice. You remember the little red book from Texas? So I was flipping through it, right, as I do every now and then. And there's this page that means so much to me, and I want to share it with you. So on September 16th, 2010, I write a lot of thoughts down, and I'm trying to figure out what to do in life. So this is right after I come back from Texas. I take my calculus final. I'm like, I think I want to understand the mysteries of the universe. Maybe I should study physics, but I don't know. So at the top, of the page, I didn't tell you, but I like switched majors in my mind a million times. I thought I was going to do sports nutrition because I was an athlete. Then I'm like, oh no, I want to understand how the body works. So maybe I want to study biology. But then I'm really interested in the molecular level. So maybe I want to understand biochemistry. But actually, all of chemistry is like reliant on physics. So maybe I want to understand physics. But what's beneath physics? Something else. Oh, and besides, before that, I was interested in hotel management and finance. Also, one day, I wanted to be a professional ice skater. But I don't know that you can make a career out of that, unless you're in the Olympics. But anyway, so I'm like discouraged. How do I know I won't change again? I'm so fickle. I'm discouraged. So then I say, Tai-Danae, what do you really want to do in your heart? Just what do you want to do? So then I write down, I just want to learn more and more about Jesus and his creation. I want to tell people how majestic he is. I want to research with someone else, people who have the same motive, the exaltation of God. I would love to travel to countries and speak with these like-minded people. I want to discover more about God through his fingerprint. Who or what pays you to travel and do research? Do you know what I do today for a job? I travel and I do research, and I'm in a room full of other people that love the Lord and seek his glory, and who also work in this field. I wrote that 15 years ago. I'm amazed. I'm floored, okay? I'm floored right now. So this is kind of the origin of the Math3ma Institute. It's to put all of these sort of vague longings on a more firm foundation. This is sort of the direction that we'd like to head, but I'm trying to give you the background so you know where all of this is coming from, okay? So, oh, by the way, I wrote Psalm 27:4, so I'm trying to think of a Bible verse that captures all of this. So I'm just going to read Psalm 27:4, which I think a lot of you know. One thing I have asked from the Lord, and that I shall seek, that I may dwell in the house of the Lord all the days of my life, to behold the beauty of the Lord and to meditate in his temple. So when I read that, again, I think about just driving down the Pacific Coast Highway, walking along the mathematical landscape. All the days of my life, I just want to behold the beauty of the Lord, meditate in his temple, and tell people how wonderful he is. That's what I said 15 years ago, and God has enabled me to have a career that allows me to do this. Amazing. Amazing. So I'm going to conclude. Finally, I'm going to ask the question that you may have been wondering. What is Math3ma? Now you know it's not pronounced Math3ma. It's pronounced Math3ma. So there's another story behind this. This is the last story. Since I was very young, like 7, I've been writing in journals, just keeping a journal. I don't know what 7-year-olds have to say, but I had stuff to say at 7. Anyway, so over the years, I started numbering them. So I'm on journal number 17 now. And these are just personal records of answered prayer in my life. Now, at some point during high school, I started signing my journals with the word Mathematician. So this is my handwriting, Mathematician. Does anyone know what Mathematician means? I know some of you do. So Mathematician is the Greek word for disciple in the feminine form. Disciple in the New Testament, from the New Testament. So I found about this Greek word. I think if you look at Acts 9:36, it's like the one time it appears in the New Testament for the disciple Dorcas. And so I thought, wow, I'm a follower of Christ. I'm a learner of Christ. And so that kind of identifies who I am. I'm trying to follow the Lord and obey him and grow in sanctification. So I'm like, that's who I am. I'm a Mathematician. So I started to sign all of my journals this way, to write it on my basketball and all this stuff. So I'm like, that's my word. Okay, so this is high school, right? Prior to City College, prior to community college, all this stuff. So even today, I still sign my journals in this way. So Mathematician is the Greek word for disciple used in the New Testament. Oh, okay, Mathematician starts with the letters M-A-T-H, so you may think it has to do with mathematics. And indeed, if you look at the etymology, there is a word that is root to both of them, and it is the Greek word mathema, which is just a lesson or something that you learn. A mathema is a lesson, something that you learn, which is related to the word for learner or disciple in the feminine form, which is Mathematician. But it wasn't until many years later, right, that I had this transformation, and all of a sudden I want to be a mathematician. So I'm like, wow. Well, by the way, mathematics is like the art of learning. So I'm like, wow. I am a learner of Christ. I study the Bible. I study God's word. I'm also a learner of his creation through mathematics. I'm in the intersection of both of these things, and there's one word that fits in that intersection. It's mathema. That captures beautifully sort of the things that God has called me to. But, the masculine form for disciple is mathetes, and of course mathematics is foundational to STEM, so that's why it felt appropriate to kind of think of this extension of the Math3ma blog and all of that's behind it into the Math3ma Institute. And I just have to say, I'm so sorry, but the 3 does not mean anything. It's not like the Trinity or something. It's none of that. So here's what happened, okay? Here's what really happened. There's this company in Italy, and they took the URL mathema.com. I'm like, really, guys? Really? But I don't want to forsake this word. So then my dad's like, oh, just turn the E into a 3. I'm like, oh, that's an awesome idea, yeah. But then it turns out no one can pronounce it. So anyways, it doesn't mean anything, all right? So it's the word mathema. Okay. So I think of this verse, wow, Lord, even before there is a word on my tongue, behold, O Yahweh, you know it all. A word, he knows it all. Wow, okay. So just in closing, so again, this is what I do. This is my research. Sometimes you have to submit a bio, like for the program or something. I have told you all of the stuff in between the white space of my bio. This is the stuff I really want to tell people. So I'm so grateful for this opportunity and that you would listen. I'm still interested in these things. I'm really interested in the project on the right, discovering the shape of information. Where is this going to go in the future? I'm not sure. Some days are harder than other days, but I'm just going to close on this one verse. Something that has really encouraged me during this time is 1 Samuel 12:24. Here's what to do when you think about the future and the past and all of this stuff. What are we supposed to do? One thing. Only fear Yahweh and serve him in truth with all your heart, for see what great things he has done for you. So I hope that maybe by sharing some of my story, like I said, when I hear your stories, I'm so blessed and so encouraged. And so maybe by sharing a little bit of my life, maybe that might be an encouragement to you too. So thank you for listening.